Hello and welcome to the Data Idols Summer School. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm David Lachlan. I'm the founder at Data Idols and one of the co-organisers at the Data Science Festival. The Data Idols Summer School is an initiative that we've been working on for a little while now. I'm keen, as we always are as a community, to give back to the people that attend our events. We've been working on the summer school, which is, I think, 36 different speakers giving up their time to share all things data with the community. So it starts off with introductions, introduction to Excel, introduction to SQL, Python, R, etc. And then as the summer school goes on, topics get more and more advanced. So thank you all for being here. In terms of accessing the summer school, there's options to do it as you are now live, where we have a Slack channel and people can work through it together. There is also options to do it on demand. So hope, however you're enjoying the summer school, wherever you are in the world, it's adding some value to you. It's something that we've worked really hard on. We've worked hard on it now for a number of months. It's taken a lot of hours. And the reason it's been possible is thanks to these fantastic companies that you can see in front of you now. All of them have given up time, given up people from within their companies to produce the content. And yeah, that's what you're seeing in front of you. So thank you all very much for that. In terms of today's session, you've joined us for an introduction to visualization from Eshwarya, and I really hope you all enjoy it. Thanks very much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Introduction to Visualization session. I'm Esh. I'm a consultant at Acrotrend. I've been in analytics for more than 8 years. I've done a lot of projects in analytics consulting space, primarily working with different types of clients. And one core area among those projects has been data visualizations and how we basically derive insights from it. So I thought I'll share my learnings and more about this topic. Yeah. So today, what we will do is this is like a short session into just introduction on data visualization. And what we will plan to cover is basically just go through the basics around what data visualization really is. Why is data visualization important? Some of these things might sound too generic, but it is important to start appreciating and understanding why do we actually do this. And especially in the field of analytics, it becomes really, really important that we visualize information in the correct way. So we'll like go into details on the what and the why of data visualization. Then we'll go into types of visualization, the kind of charts that are available, and then also take a few examples to say, okay, which kind of visualization we can use where, what will actually suit in which particular scenario. So we'll spend a bit of time there. And then from there onwards, then we'll go into ways of creating an effective visualization. So everyone can create a visualization. It is very simple to do it these days, just on Excel or a PowerPoint, or there are loads of tools out there. But then we'll go into how do we actually create an effective one so that you can create that impact. And from there, we'll touch upon the concept of data storytelling. How can we actually link charts together? How can we create a story so that that's more receptive to the audience that you're presenting to? All right. So with that, I'll go into, like I said, the what and the why. So essentially, what is data visualization? So data visualization in simple terms is just graphical representation of data. So it could just be like a simple bar chart or a pie chart that you create. Basically, you're trying to collate the information and concise it into a simple single chart so that people can either consume that information easily or you yourself can derive insights or see patterns in the data. So so that's essentially what data visualization is. Now we have like data everywhere these days, and you can have spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data. But then to actually make sense out of that, you'll need to visualize it. So that's primarily it. Now, obviously, like when you do that, it helps you to easily explore the data, see whether there are any exciting relationships that you can see within the data points that are available. It can also help you prove some of the hypotheses that you would have in mind. So typically in a lot of data science projects, you go into this exploratory data analysis, and that is where data visualization comes in handy. You can't really take a paper or a pen and just analyze all the data yourself. You'll have to then visually see it to make sense out of the information that is available. And so that's on the side of when you are analyzing it yourself or for your own consumption. But then a lot of times you also have to present these insights back to, say, stakeholders in your company. In the field that I work in consulting. So I have to present it a lot of times to my clients so that they can then take actions based on the insights that we are presenting. So then it becomes like a really easy way for us to transform or like transfer or translate that information back and exchange ideas through the visualizations that we produce out of the data. Yeah. Um, then essentially, what are the kind of visual elements that we could have? So it's not just charts which come into data visualization, right? It's not just pie chart or the bar chart. There are these exciting interactive visualizations that you could create with the likes of, say, D3.js or R-Shiny and things like that. It could be just simple things like any graphs or say maps that you create, and all of these kind of form part of the data visualization that you create. Right? Something that we kind of touched upon was obviously when you do this, it helps you easily communicate with the data. It will also help you speak to your data and also interact with your data. So essentially, I always like to say that data is as good as the visualization that you produce. Otherwise, it might not make sense. You might have the best data in the world, but if you're not able to concise it in a proper way, then it becomes difficult. And the last point here is around, there are some ideas that are very difficult to communicate in words, and that's where data visualization comes in handy. So you can basically say that, okay, yeah, you see this chart, and that then helps, and everyone kind of interprets visualizations in their own way. So based on the thought process that you have put together in a visualization, you can present it, and then people should hopefully be able to understand the reasoning or the insight behind that. Yeah. So hopefully that made sense and gave a good view on what data visualization typically is. So moving on to then just an interesting quote that I had. So Ben Schneiderman has said that visualization gives you answers to questions you didn't know you had. And this is really exciting and something that I've seen over the years as well, that you can have questions that you want to be asking your data, which is fine. So if you have questions, you can explore the data and you can get answers to it. But then if you visualize this map of known and unknown versus questions and answers, so if you create that matrix, a lot of times visualizations help you get answers to questions that you probably did not even think of or did not have. But when you start visualizing it, you see those patterns, and that's when your mind kind of starts thinking in more directions and kind of expands your thinking horizon as well. So yeah, this is an interesting quote and something to keep in mind, that like always aspire to create visualizations which help you ask more questions, so to say, so that you basically get into that matrix of unknown questions and unknown answers and explore more and further. Yeah. So now jumping into why it is important. So one is obviously that it is very easily to grasp the information that is available through one simple chart. Data is increasing day by day, and obviously it is not very wise for anyone to kind of scan through the entire data because of the vast quantity of it. And yeah, data visualization comes in handy when that happens, right? The second thing is that obviously it helps you establish relationships, see patterns, like see whether data points are kind of correlated together or not. And yeah, that is something that can happen very easily when you have charts and graphs that not just show you one pattern, but also shows you relationships between the data points, and you're able to link the information together. The third thing is just around just sharing the information that you have. So it is through data visualization becomes very easy to share information with others. You could share an important fact about, say, like a market trend that is very interesting these days, or it could be just around any specific insight that you are seeing in, say, if you work in a product company, something that you want to improve. It just becomes very easy to then share those insights with whoever you're trying to. Fourth thing is the interactivity. Actually, these days there are loads of tools in the market through which you can create visualizations wherein you can interact with the visualization itself, say click on it, kind of drill it down into some more categories, or say like based on the interaction that kind of takes you to like a deep dive view of to another visualization. So that interactivity really helps as well. And that is where visualization can kind of be expanded to deep dive into a specific theme or a problem area. So let's say you have an overall KPI, which is say going down, and then you say you click on it, you go into, okay, why this is happening. And then again, you've seen that, okay, like maybe sales are going down, or you see that, okay, this particular product category is actually having lower sales. And then you kind of drill down into that category to see, okay, which month is the sales going down, or is there any seasonality to it? So all of that can be very easily created into like a storyline through interactive visualizations as well. Yeah. And one more important point here is that data visualizations are intuitive. They can be personalized. They can also like be automated so that they are automatically updated month on month. So a lot of times we have the structured data. You have these visualizations created. And then every month, say you want to publish your visualization back to your stakeholders or even your company. You can create those updatable dashboards or visuals with which can then on a click of a button just update the information so you don't have to spend any time doing anything else. So that will basically tailor the information to one your audience needs, and then they can automatically just refresh information as they like. So hopefully this made sense. I just want to end this section with a couple of quotes. So David McCandless is obviously one of the pioneers in the field of data visualization. I love his book, Information is Beautiful. So he makes a quote that by visualizing information, we turn it into a landscape that you can explore with your eyes, a sort of information map that you create. And when people are, or when you yourself are lost in that information, the information map is kind of useful. So very thought-provoking. Another one, and something for us to get excited around data visualization is that numbers obviously are interesting. They have an important story to tell. but then they rely on you to give them a clear and convincing voice so that you are able to present or basically expand on the story that is available in the data. So with this, then we'll move on to the next section, which is just the types of visualizations. So obviously we have uh, spoken a lot about what visualizations are and why they're important. Hopefully you appreciate that by now. But then the next thing is that how can we actually create these visualizations? What are the kind of visualizations that are available, and when do we use which kind of charts? So obviously there are like hundreds of different uh, types of data visualizations available in the market. You can always create your own with your own creativity, but then these are some typical visualizations that I have here on the slide. These are kind of the most used ones. Obviously, there's this useful resource that I've mentioned here, which is Database Catalog. They have a really good mix of visualizations, and what I really like about that catalog is that for each chart, they take like specific examples on what is it that you can use this chart for, where is it really helpful, and where you should not use it as well. So do check this out. And they have, I think, over about 100 visualizations listed there, and I always go back to it when I'm kind of thinking about more creative ways of presenting information. So today we'll touch upon a few specific ones and see how we can start thinking about which kind of visualization to use where. Obviously, all of you would have already come across most of these types, but it is mainly about what kind of information is really suited for this type of a chart. So the first thing here is a pie chart. As the name says, it kind of shows you pies across, and these are kind of uh, usually used to represent categories. So when you have, say, we took example of a sales example. So if you want to show that, my overall sales is whatever, 20 million pounds, but then how is it broken down into various different product types that I have? So if I have like 5 or 6 product types, that will make a good example for showing information in a pie chart that we can show, what percentage of sales are coming based on each category. Now, one point to note here is that it is not just based on that, I have a dimension and I have like a measure or a variable or a numeric variable, and let's go ahead and use a pie chart. No, that shouldn't be the case. It is mainly about thinking how do you want to actually, what is it that you want to bring out from this data point. So in this example that we have around product category sales, what we want to show is that what is the percentage of sales in each product category, and to show that percentage, probably pie chart sounds like a good idea. But then if we wanted to show, say, like an increase or a decrease in each product category, or what is actually the absolute value in each product category, then maybe we would have chosen a different chart type, say, let's say a bar chart, if we are actually showing the difference or the quantitative difference between them. So like you can see in bar chart, you can actually see the differences between the bars, and then it becomes easy to compare information. So that makes sense. Another type, a simple one, is just line chart. Sorry. So in the line chart, then you wouldn't use a line chart when you have categorical variables, because then you are connecting the lines together, and certain things or categories are not really connected. So especially, again, this example of product categories, if we start showing like sales in each product category by a line chart, we'll basically say that there is some sort of a pattern or a trend here, wherein actually there isn't, because each product category is distinct and that should be represented that way. So what we should have in the line chart is typically like time variables. So if you want to show that, okay, how my sales have actually changed over time or month on month, that is when you'll show it probably via a line chart, because then there is like a linearity to it, that okay, like after January there'll be February and then March, and then you're showing that how is that actually varying from one data point to another. So when there is that sort of a continuation, and it's not just with time, it could be any other variables, but when you have that continuity, that is when line charts would make more sense versus if you have categories, then you would go with different types of charts. Yeah. Then sometimes these are kind of the basic three. We typically use pie chart, line charts, and bar charts, but then sometimes you could also do some interesting visuals. Say, for instance, like a tree map. So tree map in a way is similar to pie chart. That you have categories and then you have the sizing, wherein you can show how much is each category kind of worth in a space. But then depending on, again, what you want to be actually presenting, this can be a choice when you have categories and when you want to really emphasize that these are the main areas wherein, say, majority of your sales are coming, or majority of, say, on customer service side, majority of your issues are coming, the types of issues and things like that. So you could use them a tree map there. One more example that we have here is, say, a sunburst chart. And this is kind of example of something that we spoke about around drill downs. So fine, we have, say, product categories. We have a nice pie chart about them, that, okay, each product category has this much percentage of sales. But then what next? Why are these product categories actually having lower or higher sales, or are there any specific products which are contributing to X percentage of sales within each category? And that is when you could probably you can create like a sunburst chart, which has kind of one level drilled down into, okay, so there's the pie, and then there's like another pie around it, wherein each category then has subdivisions within it, and that's why the name sunburst. So like you're kind of bursting the pie chart outwards. So basically, if you think about it in data terms, Sunburst can kind of show hierarchical categories in a way, that you have a category and then you had hierarchy within them. And then you have like any sort of a measure with which you want to show how they are actually split out. So that's one. One of my favorites is Scatterplot, wherein it just helps you just plot all the points on a 2x2 sort of a matrix, and then helps you analyze whether all of these data points are kind of clustered anywhere or not, or is there like a pattern that we see with those data points. You can then, like when you have all of those data points plotted in a scatter plot within like a X or a Y axis, you can then color them, say, based on specific categories. So that kind of adds in one more dimension to it, and again helps you analyze whether there are any hidden sort of patterns that you're seeing, any specific categories that are kind of lying in any specific corner or area, and that is something that you can quickly explore. So I use this a lot when I'm doing exploratory data analysis. And this is one thing that helps us in that unknown box that we spoke about earlier. That if you don't know what you are looking for, just see the data points and observe, and maybe some interesting patterns will come out of it. Yeah. So that's about the scatter plot. Then you also have area charts. These are primarily kind of an extension of the line chart that we have. But then line chart is kind of showing you overall pattern. But then say you are seeing sales over time, but then you want to see whether my sales per category are changing over time or not. And that is when area chart could be used, wherein you stack one on top of another. So you're top part is kind of showing you overall sales, and then each area is showing you the sales within each category, so to say. Yeah, I'm trying to take the same example so that you are able to relate to how a specific insight or 2 or 3 data points can actually fit into different kinds of visualizations. So it's not just one type that you can use for one dimension and one measure. It is, again, what you are trying to present or bring out from data that becomes important. Yep. So in the interest of time, we won't go through all of these charts, but I would really recommend that you go through some of these resources that I mentioned here and spend your own time just thinking about, okay, if I have this data point and if somebody was presenting me this kind of a chart, then will I be able to draw out inferences that are actually supposed to be drawn out from this kind of a data point, and then accordingly kind of create your own mind map of what you could use where. So this was about the type of charts. Another interesting thing that we have here is just like a guide on what kind of chart would be used where. And obviously within these kind of charts that we saw on the previous slide, there could be so many different variations, like bar chart themselves have so many different variations around stack bar charts, or dual axis bar charts, or just column charts, horizontal bars, and all of that. So this is very well broken down into 4 aspects. So one is if you are doing just comparisons, then what are the kind of things that you could use? And within comparisons also, then if you're looking at within items, say you're looking at 2 variables per item, then you could use like this sort of a dual color bar chart. Uh, sorry. If you have, say, multiple categories, we already spoke that in those cases, then like a plot which is not showing any sort of a line kind of makes sense. Yeah. Similarly, if you're looking at comparisons over time, and say you also have many categories there, then you could use like a line chart with multiple categories so that you are able to see that trend, but also able to compare between those categories. So for comparison then, for each of those types, you could use these graphs and charts. Obviously, if it is more about relationships, you could use a simple scatter plot like we discussed earlier. But then if you have, say, another data point, then bubble chart kind of comes in handy as well. So scatter plot is limited that you have 2 axes and you have one sort of a measure. But then what if we had sales, but then we also had, say, price information. So we could have maybe made price as the bubble so that we see, okay, are there any categories which have higher price, but also higher sales, which is great. Lower price and higher sales, fine. But say higher price, but lower sales. So that sort of a thing we will be able to then see all of that information within one map and say, okay, what are the kind of things that we can do to actually drive up our sales now? So that's around relationships. Similarly, if you're just plotting distribution and a lot of data science projects, we would plot histograms or just see how distribution of data is, whether some of the hypotheses are actually making sense or not. Then we could make use of the histogram or the 3D area chart. And similarly then, if we have like composition to show, then you could use these combinations that I mentioned here. So yeah, I would say you could have this guide handy when you're just starting in this particular field. And yeah, once you have kind of spent some time with these will come in naturally and you'll start automatically going to the right kind of chart that is needed for you to actually show what you're willing to show. Fine. Fine. So we did a lot of talking around what and the why, and then the kind of charts to use. But then And we have also now seen that guide around which kind of chart we can use for which type of data. Then fine, we'll have all of this and we can create like we can choose the right chart and we can create that visualization. But how do we actually make that visualization effective? So there are like loads of dashboards and visualizations available. Everyone produces this like on an everyday basis, but then it is important that we create an effective visualization. So let's look at some of those principles in the next few minutes. And then what we'll also do is touch upon how do we actually create a story from these visualizations. And it could be just one visualization, it could be from a combination of visualization. So we'll just look at some of those things to keep in mind so that we are effective in doing that. So what makes a good visualization? And this is something that I've borrowed from Information is Beautiful, the website created by David McCandless himself. And he has this really interesting chart here, which kind of helps explain the concept really well. So there are essentially four parts to this. So obviously there's information and the data. So that's the pattern or the insight that we are generating, right? So we, like in our example earlier, we said that, okay, so our sales is actually increasing and there are certain product categories which are showing increase in sales. So that's kind of the information that we have at hand, right? Then we have the story on what is it that we want to actually say from this data. So one thing that you absolutely want to share is, okay, so yes, sales is increasing and there are these product categories, specific product categories which are showing that increase. But then is there anything else that you want to say? Like we said earlier when we spoke about the sunburst chart example was fine. So within product categories, we can probably drill down into say specific products which are actually helped in having an overall sales increase. So this kind of becomes like your story map to say, okay, these are the kind of things that I want to actually present as in my visualization. Um, then comes the goal. Obviously, this won't just be like a random thing that we would do. It has to be kind of related to a goal. Maybe like there's like a sales target that we have. So are we kind of meeting that target? And goal doesn't really need to be like a data target as such. Goal could be just saying that, okay, who is really our target audience, whether this kind of data or visualization actually makes sense for them or not, right? So that kind of becomes your goal. And then the visual form is the kind of chart that you would take just to basically present that in the right way with, let's say, the right sort of colors and with other sort of charts if you may have while presenting that information. Right. And if you see the overlap between these four specific areas, right? So if you combine information and story, obviously that will come out of the research that you do. You'll create kind of a script wherein you'll present information in a storyline, and like you'll have like an outline of sorts when you're kind of articulating those things together. Similarly, yeah, there are these overlaps within each of them here. And once you combine all of these together, that is when you can come up with that effective visualization, which will then help communicate those insights in the right way. Yeah. Now, what I've also kind of done is just to kind of focus on how can we actually do this, specific points that we can keep in mind when we are designing visualization. So fine, we have understood that there need to be four elements to it, but then how do we actually go about creating it? So one is obviously know your target audience. This is not really a surprise. Everyone understands that, yeah, knowing your target audience when you're presenting to them is really important. and the chart should actually be designed in the way that the audience will actually understand. So, and I like to take this example that a lot of times when I'm interacting with stakeholders, say for marketing, they like these really nice, interesting, informative visuals and colorful visuals. But then if you're presenting to, say, people within the finance, and this is typically, obviously, this changes from person to person, but then typically people in finance, they're very numbers driven. So they might want to see tables or specific numbers that you have rather than just talking about overall patterns or trends. So depending on who you are trying to present, you can actually tailor the visualization accordingly. Yeah. Then we should always have a goal or a narrative in mind. Like you said, so like is not just like a target that you're working against. It is more like a narrative that you're creating that, okay, I actually want to communicate this particular insight through this visual. And when you create it automatically in your mind, then you're thinking back whether this chart has actually helped me create or communicate that narrative well or not. So this will help ensuring and setting clear goals, and you'll be able to then convey it properly through the infographic. Yeah. Then, of course, is choosing the right chart type. Like we already discussed, like a pie chart will not always complement every visual information properly. A bar chart might not always show the statistics properly. You'll probably need a combination, or you'll basically need the right chart type for the right context. Yeah. Then fourth point is actually context. So obviously, it is important to understand and know what you are trying to present. So context can actually, and you can emphasize the context by, say, using colors in the visualization, that if you want to show different categories, then you color categories differently, because then you want people to realize that these are different things. If there are categories, you are showing categories, but you don't want people to emphasize on them, you can still have those categories and present that information, but maybe don't color them, so that it's a subtle way of them just analyzing the differences between them rather than actually focusing on each of them individually. So these are subtle things that you could do to bring out that context in the visualization. And having said all of that, it is important to keep this simple. So we don't have to overcomplicate it or say that, okay, no, bar chart looks too simple and let me just add something else to it. Simple charts are actually the best and they help communicate what you are trying to say in simple terms. Everyone doesn't have all the time in the world to just kind of focus and ponder upon one visualization. If the message is simple, then the chart should be simple. And lastly, to create effective visualization, it is important to connect the dots together. So in our example, like we said, so fine, sales is increasing, but then why are they actually increasing? Okay, probably because there are certain categories which are increasing. Okay, why are they actually showing that? Probably because there are specific products which have had some seasonality effect or whatever. So it's important to connect those dots to kind of create that effective visualization. And when I say connect the dots, more like bringing out those insights and not literally connecting the dots. So you don't have to connect the dots specifically on the chart, where it's more about connecting and basically going from data to kind of generating those insights. So hopefully with this, you would start to create some effective visuals when you're working with data visualization. Obviously, one interesting quote from Gary Reynolds is around this, which is, you can achieve simplicity in the design of effective charts, graphs, and tables by remembering three fundamental principles. So restrain, reduce, and emphasize. So like we said, we need to keep it simple. So don't overcomplicate it, don't overdo it. So restrain it, reduce it as much as possible and emphasize or add context to the ones wherein it is most required. So hopefully that will make sense. One example that I have here is just this really cluttered London tube map. This is an example of data visualization, obviously probably a over-cluttered one. But what I wanted to say with this is that it is not always important to just have a simple visual or have a visualization which is exactly to say to scale or exactly to perfection. Like this map kind of conveys the meaning, everyone uses it and everyone is able to understand and interpret that, okay, I need to go from this point to this point and hence I need to take these combination of tubes. And this map, by the way, is geographically not correct at all. But if they were to make this geographically correct, it would have become so confusing that people will not be able to actually interpret anything from it. So obviously, what is the goal here? That fine, if anyone or everyone or the large majority of population is basically able to understand if I want to go from a point A to point B, which tubes do I need to take? And if I need to change anywhere, how can I do that? And so that is the goal. And does it really matter if the distance between 2 points is not exactly proportional to what it is geographically? Probably not, because people would want to anyways go there, so it doesn't really matter how much distance there is. And that's why yeah, it's not really important to create this at scale. Similarly, then they have these zones colored as well, which kind of adds to the clutter, but then it is important because then tube is priced differently for each zone. Then that information is kind of overlaid here, which is then saying within the same map that, okay, you're going from this zone to this zone and hence you'll know the pricing for it. So all of that information is present in one and still like simple and yet conveying the meaning. So hopefully those points now kind of help you relate with this map that, okay, such a important and complex thing actually takes in those core principles. And that's why it is effective. Okay. So lastly, want to go into just data storytelling. So we spoke about fine, how can we create effective visualization, but then how do we actually create a story when we are presenting? So, so obviously we have all of this data and around data storytelling, there's this very interesting article on Forbes from where I kind of took this specific visual to explain the concept here. But then so we'll always have data when we are working on creating these visualizations, right? And data will help us identify those patterns and trends. Now, if we create a narrative around it, it is able to help, like it helps us explain that narrative from the data, right? So that's basically the overlap on the Venn diagram here. That narrative plus data kind of helps us explain what we're trying to say. Yeah, and obviously when we have data and we put in visualization on top of it, that kind of enlightens the data altogether and brings out the meaning. And we have already spoken a lot about the importance of data visualization. So that helps us enlighten what is there in our data and communicate that. Yeah. So only visual and data will enlighten the concept, but then a lot of times when we're presenting, our audience might not really engage with it. So it is important that we have like a story or a narrative with it as well, so that we have all the three together to kind of tie it together in a story. So you already have good insights. You have now all also have created like a visualization with the right chart and the effective visualization convey that insight. But then when you also have a narrative around it, you are able to engage with them and they are also getting the maximum out of it. And all of these three together will kind of help you create that storyline and take the message in the right way. Yeah. Now, a few things to keep in mind around data storytelling is that whenever you're presenting a visualization, it's not just presenting data. Always try to present insights, and there's a slight difference between data and insight, right? So data is okay, fine. I have this trend, my sales are going up, fine, but that doesn't really tell me a lot. Insight is when you say answer the why, or draw inferences or conclusions out of it, that actually my sales is increasing because in the month of December there was this macroeconomic activity that happened, or because like this product category that we have has actually shown like has actually exceeded targets or things like that. And just by doing this, you are just adding that context to the data point that you have, and it's not a data point anymore. Now you're kind of created that into an insight. So when you're presenting insight, that is when you'll automatically be able to create a narrative around it and then present them together. Yeah. Second point here is kind of reinforcing that, saying always try and answer the why behind anything. So there's this whole five whys technique that we have. Not always you can go down till the level of five whys, but then always try and go at least a couple of levels deeper to say why is this actually happening, and that will help analyze what is actually happening with the data as well, and also help you answer those unknown questions that you might not be answering to the data, but data has answers to them already. So when you have the why, automatically like you'll turn data into the insight, and you'll be able to tell that story much better. How- Also, then obviously you have data, you have the insight, but then like whoever you're presenting it to, how do they actually like what do they do with it? Fine, they can say, great, yeah, this looks exciting, but then are they actually able to take any actions from the insight that you're presenting? So we can always try and make these insights actionable. So let's say, fine, this product category is actually showing increased sales. Now, how can we actually make it actionable? What can we do? Can we run some more campaigns around maybe say other product categories wherein they can also kind of catch this wave, or can we ensure that we keep this momentum going in this product category and actually smash sales targets next time as well. So you can always have these recommendations available, and also try and link them with the data which is already available, that you're already seeing this pattern. This is how things are actually changing around other specific product categories. And then, yeah, here's the recommendation because of so and so reason. So you're adding more rigor and power behind your actions or recommendations that you're giving. And all of this, again, is helping you create that narrative and message your insights much better. Yeah. So I'll just take one example here before we wrap up, which is say like there's this mobile app which is seeing lower engagement, right? Now, when you see lower engagement, that's essentially the data that you have. So fine, we have the data, we have analyzed that there's a pattern there that the engagement is actually going down. But why is the engagement going down? Maybe people are people earlier were actually using it, say, for 30 minutes a day. Now they are only using it for 20 minutes a day. Fine. So we have some insight into why that is happening, but fine. So why are actually people using it less? Maybe because, so say, let's say this mobile app was a game. So maybe people are using up all of their power-ups that they had much sooner. So fine, now we know, okay, but why is that happening? And we can now say, fine, we can create this into a nice visualization, which helps us show that trend, show why that is happening, show that difference that, okay, like earlier, that 30-minute engagement was broken up into so people doing XYZ things. Now that has actually reduced to say 20 minutes, and there is one particular item wherein that engagement has actually gone lower. Yeah, and then the recommendation is obviously to then try and give them either more power-ups or create nudges which actually increase the engagement within the mobile game itself. So essentially, then we have combined the data. We had those visuals to present those insights, and we knew what we were trying to actually say, which is engaging the audience to look at that problem through our lens. So yeah. Hope all of this made sense, and thank you for patiently listening. Hope you are able to create effective visualizations and are able to create interesting and nice stories when you're presenting data. Thank you.